While working on the rescue squad as a paramedic in the town of Cadereyta, we met all kinds of different people. There was one guy I know I will never forget. His name was Lalo, perhaps in his late 40s or 50s, but with the mental capacity of a 5 or 6-year-old child. He was always smiling, always kind and mild-mannered. Always around, we would see him all over town, shuffling his feet along the sidewalk, shirt tucked half in, half out, his shoulders hunched forward. I tried to greet him as often as I could and give him a few pesos. I never knew where he lived, or if he had any family, or if he was homeless, but he was always around, a fixture in Cadereyta. Lalo was always friendly, especially to children, I guess because he could relate to them on the same level. I suspect that he was homeless and alone in the world because he was always alone, wearing the same baggy pants too big for him, light brown striped shirt, and plastic sandals. It appeared that he depended solely on the kindness of others to buy him a meal, give him food or money. I often saw him sleeping on a park bench in the plaza. Though he was gentle and harmless, he did get himself into trouble every now and then, wandering into places where he shouldn't be, being in the wrong place at the wrong time, holding up traffic, interrupting the mayor's speech, or just being in the way. Then there was the issue with his medical condition. Lalo had epilepsy, which meant that he was a regular customer for our rescue squad. One day he had a seizure while he was sitting on a stool at the counter of a local diner. He fell off backwards and split the back of his head open. We arrived to treat him, bandage him up, and take him to the health center to get stitched up. He was not taking any medication for his condition, so he had seizures all the time, all over town, and we always got the call. It was pretty clear that he couldn't take care of himself adequately, but the city had no programs and no resources to help people like Lalo. So he was ignored by most, tolerated by some, loved by few, and the object of cruelty by mean kids who taunted and teased him. Personally, I admired his childlike innocence and simple fascination with the world. One late afternoon, we got a call from a concerned citizen who had something unusual to report. They had just arrived in town, returning from a trip to the border about 120 miles away. They called to report that they had seen a half-clothed man walking along the highway a good 40 miles northwest of town in the middle of nowhere. There was nothing between Cadereyta and the next closest town in that direction, which was over 50 miles away, except desert and scrub brush. It did sound strange, someone out there alone, on foot, that far from civilization. Whoever it was, he would not last long like that in the 100-degree heat. It was way out of our regular jurisdiction, but we dispatched our first response unit, an '89 Ford Taurus station wagon, equipped with a stretcher in the back, basic rescue gear, lights and siren, and headed out to investigate. We left Cadereyta, past the oil refinery, past the little town of San Juan, and continued into the hot, dry, flat desert plains. We drove for miles and saw nothing. It was a virtual wasteland. We searched the sky for signs of vultures circling above dead livestock or roadkill. We saw the shifting reflections of mirages on the pavement ahead, which magically disappeared as we approached. Then finally, way in the distance, we saw him, a hunched figure shuffling along the side of the highway. As we got closer, I recognized him as our old friend, Lalo. He was shirtless, his bloody shirt tied on his head. He stopped as we slowed down and pulled over and got out. "Lalo, what happened? What are you doing way out here?" His skin was badly sunburned and he was severely dehydrated and weak, but he greeted us with his usual winsome, impish smile. He was covered in dried blood, sweat, dirt, and grime. We got him into the back of the unit, tended to his injuries, and started an IV to get some fluids into him. "Lalo, how did you get way out here?" "I fell down last night. They picked me up and gave me a ride to the desert." "Who did?" "They took me to the desert and left me there and went away and didn't come back for me." "Who, Lalo?" "The police took me and left me, and I waited, but they didn't come back for me. So I started walking and I followed the tire tracks and I found the road and was going back to Cadereyta." "Lalo, it's too far to walk. We came to get you. What did the police tell you?" "To wait for them to come back, but they didn't come back." We took Lalo back to Cadereyta, where our doctor fixed him up and he spent the night in his clinic. He was fortunate to be alive after spending a night and a day in the middle of the desert, in the middle of summer. It was clear he was intentionally left there to just disappear. Lalo was left there to die, allegedly by local law enforcement. The next day he was back on the street. We didn't know what to do, so all we did was report to the police that we had found him if they wanted to conduct any kind of investigation into what happened to Lalo. In God's providence, I believe we saved Lalo's life that day. We eventually turned the rescue squad over to the city, got involved in other ministries, and moved far away. Though I never knew what became of Lalo, I know I will never forget this kind, gentle soul and the day we found him lost and wandering in the desert. Thank you so much for listening to this true story from Memoirs of Mexico. If you enjoyed this story, or if it was a blessing to you, please feel free to like and subscribe to my channel. That would be a blessing to me. I upload a new true story every day. If you like to read, you can also order Memoirs of Mexico in paperback or ebook on Amazon.com. There's a link in the description. Thanks again for listening.